Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Dharma Junkie podcast. On this episode, my guest is Blair Abee. Blair is the author of the Meditation book, the Mindfulness book, the Manifestation book, and more, all of which are available on Amazon. If you enjoy this show and you wish to support it, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen. We had a fantastic conversation, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. I'm not going to beat around the bush too much, so without further ado, Blair Abee.
You might catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information. Forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. We're using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
Blair Abee, how's it going, man?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you being a guest and taking the time to do this. We tried this once before, and our audio was not so great. So give it another go.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. So what's been up with you, man? Just how's things?
Life's good. I just passed 23,000 books distributed or sold of my 6-book now set of books on meditation and mindfulness and manifestation, benefits of meditation, the whole series. And that was kind of a milestone, if you will.
Right.
The books that I publish on Amazon as a independent publisher. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if you've written some books, but if you've done that, you know that it takes a lot of work to kind of get the word out, let people know about it. I'm constantly learning how to do a better job of marketing.
Right. Yeah, I have not written a book. I'm actually about to get started writing a book. I'm working on all the preliminary stuff right now, and
yes,
trying to get all my ducks in a row before I actually start writing. So I'm trying to get my formatting down, and just the structuring and the way I want to do it, and then I'll go about the writing process. So maybe I can pick your brain about that sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Be happy to talk with you about that and let you share with you what I know about it.
Right. I would certainly appreciate it. So yeah, the marketing, man, I'm terrible at marketing. I got to be honest with you. I'm probably the worst person at marketing on the internet.
Well, there are lots of options. Let's just say that. And the learning curve, there's some steepness to the learning curve, but it's actually kind of fun once you get into it and kind of master the details.
Right. Yeah, it's something I definitely need to put a little more time and research into that. So maybe that can be another thing I pick your brain about a little bit.
Happy to share.
So what is the title of the last book you put up?
So the last book that I put up is called the Manifestation book. Okay. And it's a spiritual approach to manifesting and to law of attraction, if you will.
Okay.
It's a book that really takes a different approach to manifesting, in that it's not about visualizing a BMW showing up in your driveway tomorrow. It's not about doing a poster board with all the pictures and looking at that every day.
Come on, man, you're not into the vision boards.
It's really a different approach, and it's really a more spiritual approach that's consistent with my other books and my other ideas, which is letting spirit be involved in your life and letting spirit be involved in manifesting. And the understanding of that really came out of an experience I had of illumination and soul contact. And the manifestation book is really part of that whole continuum of having a better life where good people and circumstances and things show up, but they show up because you've turned over what you need and want to spirit. And I have a whole process that I'd be happy to share with you on
please.
how to do that.
Yeah, I would love to hear it. I think
I've been using it now for, 4 or 5 years. It just works incredibly well. And people have said that it works for them very well as well. So the process is pretty simple. It starts with a ask for something that you're interested in manifesting in your life.
Okay.
And the ask is important because I'm speaking when I do this to my soul or to my higher consciousness,
okay,
to the universe. And so I'm asking for the best possible outcome related to whatever it is that's on my mind, whether it's the best possible outcome of a show like this. And I did this before we came on the air. Best possible outcome of the appearance that I'm about to make, or the best possible outcome for a parking place going into San Francisco, close to where I live.
So all levels,
all levels. You can do it for anything.
Too big, nothing too
big,
small.
little.
Right.
No barriers there.
Gotcha.
So I asked for the best possible outcome for the Dharma Junkie show that I'm about to go on, and then pause, take a breath, and get a sense that, which almost always happens, something has moved. Spirit has engaged. It's a feeling that I've turned it over to spirit,
okay,
and I'm letting the best possible outcome be the result. And then there's a thank you for your participation in my life, a finishing statement to my higher self or to my higher consciousness. And it's interesting because then what you do is turn over the result to your higher consciousness, to your soul, and soul knows much more what you need and want, what will help you to grow and evolve the maximum extent possible.
Right.
And it's a matter then of trusting that your soul will have whatever it is that would be best for you unfold. And sometimes it's much better than anything that I might have prescribed or prayed for. But certainly for example, a parking place, it might not be that I needed one right out in front of the restaurant. Maybe I needed to be down the street a little bit in order to have some sort of experience going to the restaurant that would be beneficial to me, more beneficial than having the parking place appear right in front of the restaurant.
Right.
So it's simple, but it also has a degree of complexity and it has a degree of trust involved. And it does assume that you've made soul contact or had experiences of being in touch with your higher self. So there's an assumption there. And that means for most people, some degree of engagement with meditation or other kinds of experiences that allowed you then to have that sense of illumination or to have that sense of soul and or higher self being part of who you are, and that you are one with that part of yourself that it always is available anytime you turn to it.
Right. Yeah, I honestly feel like I've been using that technique for years now. Same thing, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not complicated.
Yeah.
But the real key, and this is where I sort of had the aha moment, because I'd studied manifestation and I'd read books and gone to workshops and so forth, and it was always about what the list of things that you want,
Right.
that your human mind wants, as opposed to that which you need and want, and which you don't prescribe when you ask for it.
Right. Would you say it's what the true self wants as opposed to the conditioned self?
Correct. That's right. It's what the spirit self or the higher self, as opposed to your human mind that wants everything.
Oh yeah. Gimme. I don't know what I want, right, but I need it.
and even sometimes, praise to God as if God were Santa Claus.
Right.
And bargaining, with God.
Right.
If you'll
do this
give
one
me,
thing for me,
I'll do this. Which is what I learned in my youth, and in the Lutheran upbringing, that I came in with.
Right. I feel like that's what most people kind of learn when they're coming.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
the
any of us who've had
system.
any spiritual training of that sort, spiritual church related, it's often that kind of asking and begging and bargaining with God kind of praying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you were saying, we were talking about, lists and the things you want, and
Yes.
what are they called? Vision boards and stuff like
Right.
that. So this goes beyond the level of the human want. This is what the
That's
spirit
correct.
wants. This is what the true self wants. And
Yes.
and as I know, if you just slow down just a little bit, which is such a
just
hard
a little
thing,
bit, yeah,
just a little bit, which most people, I and this might, I may be going out on a limb saying most people, but I feel like most people just don't do that.
I think that's true, and I think that's true because we are so conditioned.
Yeah.
I would say even hypnotized.
Oh yeah.
From the day that we open our eyes on planet Earth to our human condition, and the limitations of that human condition, which says that this is a difficult world and it's a dog eat dog world, and we have to be very goal oriented, and we just have to listen to that human mind, chatter that is just constantly looking into the past, looking into the future, trying to figure out what's the best way to get the little edge that we're trying to get as a human being. I think that's what we're really, I call that three-dimensional reality, as compared to a higher dimension, which you get in touch with when you do meditation, when you have a direct experience of self, when you have a direct experience of the all. You begin to see that there's so much more than just this, complicated biomechanical vehicle that we're driving around all the time, and that is constantly subject to our emotional states and our mental states, moment by moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people are just asleep to that, and they grow up, and as we've said, it's like their parents. That's the way they grew up, and it's just and it's passed on, and it's passed on, it's passed on until something propels you towards a spiritual path, and then you kind of have that like aha moment, and you're like, wait a minute, I think there's more to this, and then you kind of start waking up bit by bit by bit.
Precisely, that's sort of a state of grace.
Oh yeah,
I think, to wake up from that hypnotized state that most of us, and I think most of us is true, are walking around in, and certainly that we got conditioned to walk around in from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And very few people knew that I ever encountered up until I began doing yoga and becoming
Right.
beginning to do my awakening process. Nobody knew the notion of the kingdom of heaven being within, which is what I grew up with in the Christian church.
Right.
Nobody could talk to that.
Right.
Nobody knew about it. No teacher knew about it. My parents certainly didn't know about it. No minister ever mentioned it.
Right.
So there was really not much of a way to begin to crack the egg open a little bit in the bringing that I had.
Yeah, it seems so strange to me that that is such everybody's heard that, especially if you've been involved in the church in any capacity. If you've been involved in the Christian church, you've heard that the kingdom of heaven lies within.
Yes,
but for as literal as most people take the Bible, you would think that would register on a different people, it's kind of astounding that more people don't really pick up on that.
Right.
As a Dharma practitioner, and I believe you are along those lines as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's nothing new for us. It's like, no, heaven's here and now, hell's here and now, and it's kind of up to you where you want to live.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of your spiritual path, how did you? And I'm sure we've touched on this before when we attempted last time. But what led you to your spiritual path, and like what were the causes and conditions that put you where you're at today?
Yes. Well, I started doing yoga about 45 years ago when I first moved to San Francisco. Moved from North Carolina to San Francisco, and began taking a yoga class. It was at an integral yoga institute. Swami Satchidananda, who was the guru of the 60s generation early on. And so I have been doing yoga ever since and meditating. But it really wasn't until about 6 years ago that I had my illumination experience.
Okay.
And that was caused by a traumatic event in my life where I got fired for doing a whistleblowing of my psychopathic boss. I'd taken a fairly large promotion to come from North Carolina to San Diego, only to find myself in a real difficult situation.
What were you doing at that time? What was your profession at that time?
Business consulting.
Okay.
Yeah. And I moved up in the ranks. I was taking an assistant state director position, and it turned out my boss she was abusing employees. She was mishandling money. The program was going down the tubes, but she was a real mistress, if you will, of smoke and mirrors. So the people who were supposed to be managing or keeping watch over the program at higher levels, they couldn't tell that it was as bad as it was. But it began to be obvious. And she started talking about blaming me for all the problems that she had created. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. And I just couldn't put up with the abuse of other people. It was just... So I went to the authorities. They did an investigation. She was fired, but I was fired too because I was a troublemaker. Well, that ended this path of 25 years.
Oh, wow.
My ego was out to here. I was making really solid money. I was my job.
Right.
And that ended. Partially for therapy, I just started journaling. And I would at night just do my meditation, dive into my meditation, really go to work on that. And I began to get a sense of that higher self part of me um, and soul contact. In fact, as I wrote, and I don't know if you've had this experience yourself as you write, where you just sit and write, and it feels like spirit's just flowing through your fingers
Oh
right
yeah.
into the
Oh
computer.
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that began to happen, and that was startling because I'd really never had that experience before. It was like amazing. So I wrote and I wrote and wrote for therapy. After about 100,000 words, I realized I had enough material to start putting some books together.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Now I'm up to about 600,000 words in my journal, constantly, pouring spirit onto the page, and that really has been the substance of my of the written word, and the compiling of my ideas and the realizations that I've come to, that really were based on that relationship with, I like to call my higher consciousness high C, sort of
That's a good one.
my affectionate name, if you will, for that part of myself. So that was the genesis, really, of my awakening. Call it awakening 2.0, because the initial awakening was a partial awakening when I first started doing yoga, and it sort of developed over time. But I'd really never taken the deep dive that this forced me to take. And what I realized is, because my life is better than it's ever been, I realized this is where what spirit wanted me to do. It wanted me to take that hard right turn off of that road that I was going down, that was really not serving my self, not serving my growth, not serving my evolution. So reinventing myself then was a part of the process of being able to sit here today with you and having this fabulous conversation about these sorts of things.
Yeah, I don't know about you, man, but if I feel like whatever I'm doing for to make my living, if there's no meaning to it,
Yes.
if it's not fulfilling, it feels just so draining.
Right. It does. Yeah. If it's just about the money, if it's just about pounding something out,
right?
It's really not worth it. And of course, that the kind of mindset that is one of the things that I learned in my Buddhist training. The whole notion of doing work with people that you enjoyed working with, that has a higher purpose to it, and that stimulates your growth and evolution. So that was an early understanding that I came to, and I've been applying that really to all of the work that I've ever done since then. Right livelihood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's huge for me. Sila is such an important thing for me, like just the ethics of my life. Like, is what I'm doing ethical? And does it serve others? Does it serve me in a positive way? And if it doesn't, like I would rather be broke. I would rather be broke and struggling to pay my bills doing something meaningful that benefits others and benefits myself on a monetary level, but also on a spiritual level than doing a job that I absolutely am miserable at and making a ton of money. You know what I mean?
I understand exactly. Yeah. No, it's excruciating not to be doing something that you love.
Yeah, I mean, like we only get one of these, and and at least in this incarnation, I only get to be Justin Otto one time.
Yes.
I'm not going to spend it just pissing my life away under fluorescent tubes, making somebody else rich.
That's right.
Yeah,
no, sure. It's a waste.
Yeah, it's a waste of a good human birth
of a good lifetime.
Right on. So, when did you become involved with Buddhist practice?
Well, of course, the yoga was right next to it, but the yoga just sort of led me over into Buddhist practice, and actually into Zen. There were a couple. There's some really wonderful Zen centers here in the Bay Area, and I lived 5 miles from one at one point, and the shortcut was to go over this rather tall ridge. And so I would do that on the weekends whenever they would have the various programs that they had. I could just take the short route over the tall ridge and be right there in about 40 minutes. It was a wonderful place, the Green Gulch Zen Center in Marin County.
Are they still open?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. That's so good. We need, there's just not enough meditation centers in America. There's just not,
No, there's not.
I mean, and I think there's probably more Zen centers than there are any other lineage.
That's probably true. Yeah, I think that's probably true, as opposed to just meditation centers per se,
right.
Or Buddhist temples. Even that, they're few and far between, especially if you're not in a big city someplace.
So, are you still a Zen practitioner, or have you branched into other lineages and kind of dabbled with that, or are you still Mahayana?
Well, my experience is once you do Zen, it just becomes part of your daily practice of being mindful, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of across the board. If you delve into any lineage of Buddhist practice, if you're really committing to the path, and and that becomes the way you live.
That's right.
It pervades every aspect of your life. Hence, right livelihood, like we were talking about.
Yes, exactly. The practice that I've been exploring most recently is non-duality. Do you know Moji?
I'm familiar with it. I'll call him up right now. No, I don't. I know.
Of him. You know of him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have him on speed dial. I have a lot of teachers on speed dial, but not Moji. Not yet.
He's got he would be a great guest. He's the person that I'm, and he's got lots of YouTube videos out. And in the evening, sometimes what I'll do is just put on one of his 1 hour meditations. And he's great at just kind of leading you right into a state of elevated consciousness and a state of non-duality. And he has a tremendous following. Apparently, I didn't know this until I kind of stumbled across him at some point. And there are even times when I'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm really wide awake and not really prepared to get up. I've got my cell phone, next to me, and I'll just put on one of his YouTube videos and do that for a while. And it's really a good way to either go back to sleep if I'm wanting to go back to sleep, or if it's just a way of starting the day with a sense of elevated consciousness.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I like I said, I'm familiar with him, but I haven't really checked out any of his stuff. But I'll definitely check out some of the meditations because it sounds like it's pretty beneficial. So,
and he also does in India. He does satsang, and he tapes satsang, and he'll go for several hours interacting with his followers to help them in their development. He'll sort of take a conversation wherever they happen to be, and he'll sort of move them along a little bit in his gentle but firm sort of way. And that's also interesting to watch. Actually, it's interesting to watch him work with people and to watch them to begin to wake up in that fashion.
Yeah. It sounds pretty awesome that he does that and he takes that time, because I feel like that's one thing that a lot of teachers don't do, is really what the teacher should be doing, which is, really helping people with their practice. And a lot of people just have these boilerplate answers for people. I don't know if you've ever sat a Goenka Vipassana retreat.
No.
And I'm a huge fan of, I've sat one this past last year, and it was fantastic. 10 days, noble silence,
Wow.
Vipassana meditation. Uh,
Yes.
but the one thing that I did find, and the one thing that I guess my one critique would be is they're all video recordings, which is not a big deal. So they have
Yes.
assistant teachers there, but the
Yeah.
assistant teachers aren't really very helpful.
Understand.
And I've heard that from several people that I've talked to about this, is they just have these boilerplate answers. And
Right.
as you're moving through, are you familiar with the Theravadan Progress of Insight or Stages of Insight?
No.
You definitely check
Say,
that out.
okay.
I'll send you some links and stuff.
Please do.
Yeah, for sure. But as you're moving through these stages, you can move into these dark night of the soul territories, which come up when you're doing consistent meditation practice. As you're
Yes.
moving further inward, stuff starts happening.
Yes. Bubbling up.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
people have committed suicide after these retreats that were generally happy people
Wow.
before they sat the retreat. And
Yes.
I feel like that's because there's not enough emphasis on really working with those states with people. They give them these boilerplate answers and they're like, just keep meditating, keep doing Vipassana. But at
Yes.
that point, you're using like first jhana techniques for third jhana problems, and it's not really beneficial. There's, other techniques that should be applied. And I just feel like they could use a little more training. And I'm not trying to be critical of the Vipassana retreats by any means, because I think they're wonderful, and I'm going to sit more of them in the future.
Yes.
I just feel like when these things arise, as they are apt to do with a committed and dedicated meditation practice, especially an intensive retreat where you're meditating 100 hours over the course of 10 days,
Yes.
things are going to happen. And if the teachers aren't willing to take the time to work with people and really help them, that seems something's you know what I mean.
Now, is your sense is that they don't really know how
I
deal with people?
I feel like they probably do know, but it seems
Yes.
the way that they're trained is it's a little, it kind of almost comes off a little culty, because
Yes.
they're like, it feels like most of the people that are Vipassana practitioners feel like that is the only way. Like, this is the only way to awakening. This is the only way for purification. And if you
Yes.
don't do this, then you're not going to get there. And everything else is not worthwhile,
Right. Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing I have the problem with.
Yeah.
Is that,
that is problematic. I mean, you mentioned you grew up in the Christian church. I mean, there are a lot of Christian churches that have that same.
Right.
Ours is the only way.
Right.
Not just Christianity is the only way, but XYZ is the only way.
Right. This particular
and
denomination. Yeah. And
everybody has their own way.
right. Yeah. Exactly. But, I feel, especially because there is so many lineages and so many Buddhist teachings and so many paths to awakening. People wake up
Yes.
all the time, that don't even have a meditation process.
Sure. Yeah.
And
people are different. I mean,
Yeah.
what works, some people are more auditory, some more visual, more, various ways of adult learning. I mean, all of that. I think that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not really trying to be critical of
Yeah.
the Goenka retreats, because I personally hold them very close to my heart. I adore them.
Yes.
I love what they're doing. It's, students go for free. It's all donation based.
Right.
And it's Essen Goenka was kind of like the Johnny Appleseed for Buddhist meditation. It really, he's spread these, there's these Vipassana centers all over the world.
All over.
It wouldn't be possible without him. But
Right.
the thing that I don't necessarily care for is the way they're so hardline about, like, this is the only way.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it, and every other teaching is just trash,
Yeah.
and that kind of
Yeah.
bothers me. But
Yeah.
other than that, there's a wonderful practice. And I would recommend anybody that is interested in meditation and is really dedicated to the practice and wants to immerse themselves, go sit a Vipassana retreat. They're amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, that is why I say, with what Muji is doing with satsang, that's beautiful. Because
Yes, it is. It is
you-
quite beautiful.
you
Because
really,
you can almost see people just blossoming right before your very eyes
that's so cool.
when he's able to penetrate in and have them have that aha moment.
Right.
It's lovely.
Yeah. Okay. So you started sitting Zen shortly after your yoga. You came in
Yes.
Zen, and then And so tell me about your progress through the Zen path.
Yes. Well, mostly um, it was doing the Zen practices that were available at the Zen centers. I mean, I would go usually once a week,
Mm.
um, and and then take that back, to my daily practice and apply it into yoga. And I even began to apply it into various aspects of my life. Um, Tennis being one of them. I play tennis quite a bit, and I began applying mindfulness to tennis, which uh, a moving meditation
Right.
practice, and um, high level professional tennis players talk about being able to get into a zone, as
Yeah.
they call it,
The flow state.
where everything kind of slows down and they're just hitting the ball extraordinarily well, and that's what they're trying to do each time they go out on the tennis court. Although, like your meditation practice, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
I also did Tai Chi, and continue to do Tai Chi at this point. Another really nice moving meditation practice. And I like the moving meditation because it seems to be more directly related to just everyday life and moving through life. I mean, there's sitting, and I have my own sitting process that I share in my books and share with my students and so forth.
Right.
But and that's sitting, and you have the experience that you have when you sit.
Yeah.
But then applying that to everyday life, and to just driving and moving around and
Right.
fixing food and just doing your life.
Well,
I found these moving meditation practices have been really good for that, because it's sort of that it includes both
yeah.
the movement and interacting with the world,
Right.
while at the same time being in a nice meditative space.
Right. Well, the Buddha in the Satipatthana said that we should be mindful while we're sitting, standing, lying down, and walking. So it
Yes.
really brings in everything. And for me, meditation and daily life are not separate things. Just like you're saying, you're bringing your practice off of the cushion and into the world. Well,
Yes,
that is the practice.
that's right.
Can we be mindful all the time?
Right.
Can we be mindful of our speech, be mindful of our actions, have
Yes.
correct view?
Yeah.
I have the correct intention, and can we, really be immersed into everything that we do and give it our 100%?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah,
Absolutely.
For me, meditation really starts when you get off the cushion.
Well, that's really true. Can you make that transition? And for me, it's about remembering, or
Right.
remembering to remember
Right. Well,
who I am, remembering, and that's so I'll do my higher consciousness meditation practice in the morning and in the evening, but throughout the day I'll be doing some sort of mudra, or some sort of mindfulness
right.
practice, saying to myself frequently, peace, be still, for example, as a way of remembering to be mindful in the process of doing whatever I'm doing,
Right.
whatever the human task is that I'm engaged with.
Are you familiar with the history of the word mindfulness?
I'm not. What is the history?
Okay, so mindfulness is a fairly new word. In the Pali Canon, there's no word for mindfulness. So
Gotcha.
the practice of mindfulness comes from the Satipatthana Sutta, and which is the Buddha's discourse on the four foundations of mindfulness. This word sati was translated in the late 1800s by a Buddhist scholar, Rhys Davids, and he translated it as mindfulness, which is
Yes.
helpful. But what it really, if you go back to the Pali definition of it, it does literally mean to remember or recollect.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you
Yeah. Didn't know that, but I can see the consistency there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Sharon Salzberg has that great quote. Mindfulness is great as long when we remember to do it.
It's true. It's true. It's remembering to remember. It's part of the practice.
Yeah, because we forget.
I've got this. I've got a little a sign, a little 3x5 card taped to the little statue that's sitting next to my computer. Christ consciousness.
Right.
And it's just a visual reminder of remembering. So and then I have to move it around because then it begins to just sort of become part of the background.
Yeah,
so I have to move it around and tape it to something else from time to time as a way of renewing the remembrance.
Right. Yeah. Christ consciousness, Buddha nature. And
yes,
we can go right back into the conversation we were having earlier about the kingdom of heaven lying within. It's like we all have this capacity of Christ consciousness. We all have Buddha nature and the ability to wake up. It's like, well, are you willing to do the work to get to the point where you start to wake up?
Correct. Yeah. It's and it's all of our master teachers said the same thing fundamentally, that when you boil it down, their key teachings, what they were doing was meditating. They were getting to a point of Christ consciousness. All of them had, I think, that knowledge and understanding and experience of a higher state of consciousness, and that's what they turned around and taught to their followers. Unfortunately, their followers made them into gods instead of seeing that all that teacher was doing was pointing to what they knew to be true, and here's some techniques to do that.
Right.
But it's my life that you should be paying attention to, and it's that you should be taking away from this experience.
Exactly. They've foregone the teachings and pedestalized the man.
That's right. Yeah. And every religion, unfortunately, has done that, and I think that's part of what keeps us hypnotized. Right. Is if we stay in mainstream religion, we don't really understand the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's obvious once the dawning of understanding happens. Once you that's what that means. I get it now. But until then, you're just still asleep to it.
Right. And so many people discount Christianity because of religious trauma and just the way that they were conditioned to, as what we're saying, pedestalizing the man rather than really digging into the teachings.
That's right.
And the Bible is taken very literally. And for me, I don't read it as a literal book. It's full of symbology is what it's
very metaphorical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, have you ever read the Bible and just used nothing but I statements?
Well, that's the ones that I like to read. I mean, the ones in red and the ones that are the I statements. I think that's really where the highest teaching came from. And I came by that understanding years ago, studying Joel Goldsmith. Are you familiar with Joel?
I'm not.
He's a 20th century Christian mystic. He died in the 60s and was an early adherent to Christian Science, but then he branched out. His system is called the Infinite Way, and basically, his is a lot of very penetrating understanding of those I statements and what they mean, and who and what God is, for example, and what it was that Jesus was saying, and its application to everyday life, which again takes you to the same place, heaven within, and reaching a state of higher consciousness and applying that in your daily life.
Yeah, I'm of the probably the not so popular camp that we are all God, and we are all the devil, and we are all Jesus, and we are all Buddha, and you know what I mean?
Well, it's all one.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
That's right. Fundamentally, the all, which, because I don't like the word God, it has too many connotations.
Yeah, there's too much baggage attached to that word.
Yeah, exactly. But the all, to me, says it, and the experience of the all is one of omnipresence, which is non-duality. It's the experience of being in a state of meditation and having an illumined experience,
right.
In which you realize you are in fact one with it all.
Yeah, and I think more people need to reach that state. Whatever means they choose to get there.
Well, what you're saying, I think, is profound, because if we don't,
well, we're doomed.
The future of mankind is at risk.
Yeah, we're doomed.
If we don't wake up, if we don't evolve to being fifth dimensional beings, mm-hmm. or eternal beings, or if we don't realize our consciousness as a species, as you said, we're doomed. I mean, it's not a pretty picture, and sometimes I get a little concerned about what my next lifetime on planet Earth is going to be like. I mean, I'm concerned about my children and my grandchildren, but my next lifetime might be reincarnating into an absolute total mess of a planet that is dystopian and a terrible experience. Right. So we have to wake up.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I can hopefully I can attain Nibbana and get off the wheel.
Well, yeah.
I don't have to do another round in whatever is going to happen. But yeah, I think
would be my wish. That would be my best possible outcome, would be not to have to come back, to go to a more evolved place.
Right. For sure. But yeah, and you're right. You're so right, man. If people don't start waking up to this, it's like we are doomed, because, and it's all just so, especially in Western culture, it's we're taught to be such individualists, and other countries and other how can I put this?
Societies.
Other people aren't as individualistic as we are in the West, and there's this big me, mine thing in the West, and it's like, if you've, even touched on these states, if you've even just, had a brief glimpse, it's like there is no separation from self and other. The ego is just the illusion of self.
Yeah. Exactly. And if we don't come to realize that if all of us are prospering, none of us are prospering. If all of us are doing well, really none of us are doing well. I mean, you can segregate yourself off into, some gated community and pretend like, there's not a world out there of suffering, but you're suffering too, in a different way.
Yeah.
And if we don't all prosper, if we don't all do well, if we don't all wake up, then, it's again, we've wasted the opportunity.
Right. And, I think the Buddha knew that. And, that's why his first discourse was the setting of the wheel of Dharma into motion. And that's the Four Noble Truths, basically. It was the discourse where he gave the Four Noble Truths. And as we all know, the first noble truth is, in life, there is suffering. And I think he used suffering because it is so unifying. We all enjoy different things. We all, have different hobbies and interests. And we're, the things that make us happy are different from everybody. Everybody else. We're all, individuals in that sense, but we all suffer the same way. We all get sick, we all age, we all die, we all lose people that are close to us. We all don't get what we want at times. Sometimes we get things we don't want. Our suffering is very synonymous. We're very similar in that aspect. We all suffer the same way. I think he was really onto something with leading with that teaching, because it is very unifying. And he's like, look, if we don't, we all suffer. And if we all don't wake up, shit's going to get bad.
Yeah.
And that was 2,600 years ago.
and it was a good beginning to then offering the antidote, which is to meditate.
Right.
which is to go within, which is to reach that higher state, which is to become more conscious,
Right.
which is to that's the way out of that box.
Yeah.
But if we don't know that, if we don't learn that, if we don't experience that, then like you said, it's suffering in every way possible.
Yeah, I mean, meditation is definitely a huge part of it, but like the Eightfold Path in general, really, if we get down to it, the Eightfold Path in general, it's like live your life as a good person, basically.
Yes.
It's all the Eightfold Path boils down to is,
Right.
be mindful of your ethics, be mindful of your intentions, be mindful of everything. And mindfulness is kind of blown up, in the past 20 years. We've got the whole mindfulness movement, and everybody's talking mindfulness and
I haven't heard that. Mindfulness.
like
That's funny.
And it's very, very popularized, but
Yes.
And sometimes that kind of pisses me off a little bit because it doesn't give the rest of the teachings a fair shake. But really, if we look at it, I don't think any of the other teachings are really, you can't do anything with them without mindfulness, because if you're not paying attention to them, how can you, be mindful of them?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's certainly all wrapped up together. Yeah. But my experience is, when you wake up, you will naturally be that better person. You will naturally be grateful. You will naturally be aware of others and compassionate. You will naturally, in the process of awakening, you will naturally do those sorts of things that are part of a higher vibrational frequency that you reach as you rise up in consciousness.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, for sure. And it's, I just wish people would just slow down. If I could say anything to, anybody, it's just like, slow down,
relax, slow down. That's right.
Chill out. Yeah. Like, it's not what you think is so important is not as important as you think it is. And you probably have people that you care about that you're neglecting, in your pursuit of accolades and accomplishments. And I'm not saying don't try to achieve things, but, I know so many people that work so much that they hardly ever see their family. And when it comes down to it, like, at the end of the day, like, is that what you want to think about on your deathbed? Like, how well you did at your job? Or do you want to, do you want the people that you should be with, in your life to be there at your death?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm 70 at this point. I'm 72, and I'm more mindful of that than ever, because I'm kind of semi-retired, and the importance of family and the importance of people around me, and importance of taking care of the people around me, and the importance of spending time with people who I interact with on the basis of my work and so forth. That's really where the juice is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's for me, life is about connection. It's about connecting with other people and meaning making. And for me, I derive a lot of my meaning out of the relationships that I have with people. Yeah.
One of the things that I experienced one day in going to the grocery store, interestingly enough, I was in a really nice, mellow mood, and I was doing a little bit of mindfulness practice, and all of a sudden it was like the grocery store sort of lit up with that, which I think is probably already there. But I began to see people from Buddha mind or Christ consciousness or whatever, and I could see past the three-dimensional body part of them to, it was as if they were all surrounded by light.
Oh.
And it was at that point I realized, oh, well, yeah, we're all that. That's all. If what I have the ability to do is to put myself in a state of sacred seeing, which is a mindfulness practice that I do, I can see my wife and her bigness. I can see my children and their bigness, and my grandchildren and their bigness. I can see the people at the grocery store and their bigness. And that's a kind of mind-blowing experience that when that happens, it's again, it sort of gets internalized, and that experience happens more and more as I'm just out in the world and being with people.
Right. Yeah. And what I've noticed is, it happens, when that kind of thing starts to happen, and it doesn't just have to be that, but, along the lines of what you're talking about, that moment where you start seeing everyone and the greatness that they are, that you see the divinity in everyone, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
And, I try to view everyone as myself living another life, basically.
Well, there you go. I like that. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
You start, it starts small, and then it starts happening a little more frequently, and then it starts happening even more frequently, and then eventually that's just the way you live. That's just the way you live, and it definitely makes you a kinder person.
Yes.
And,
be gentle with yourself and be gentle with the, yeah, exactly. Right, absolutely.
I mean, the first precept is do no harm to any living being. And
yes,
that starts with me and then extends to everyone else. I don't try to harm myself, and I certainly don't try to cause harm to anybody else.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The ego,
I don't need more karma.
Yeah, for sure. I don't need any more. Yeah. The ego is such a trickster, just that I gets in the way all the time. And if we could talk about it in like the Dharma perspective, if you talk about anatta, like not self, it's like, well, okay, well, I'm not my body, and I'm not, my name is Justin Otto, but those are just words that my parents gave me. I'm not my thoughts. Anything that we can observe is not us. I'm certainly not my job title. And, if we can even turn awareness back on itself. So if we can be aware of awareness,
yes, getting close.
What's left?
True. Absolutely true. And that's what Muji talks about, and the guided meditations that he does. That's what he takes you to the brink of. You still have to step over the brink,
right?
But he'll take you to the brink, and then you can just relax into it and be, and just be self.
Yeah.
Connected to all.
Yeah. And I'm happy that he can, and teachers can point you that are in the direction, but right. you have to do the work. You have to do the work. It's up to you to seek out your own liberation.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool. So, so you said your last book was on manifestation.
Yes.
What about this is a series of books, correct?
It is. The first one was on the benefits of meditation.
Okay.
And what I did with that one was to take a look at the various scientific research studies that have been done on the benefits of meditation, primarily mindfulness.
Right.
And there've been, at this point, there've been more than 3,000 studies on the benefits of meditation that have shown virtually all aspects of mental, emotional, and physical difficulties respond to meditation positively. And then I talked a little bit about why that is, how meditation works, right. And why it works.
I think just for some of the people listening that may not be familiar with some of the benefits of meditation, would you like to give them expound on some of that for them?
Well, sure. Almost many diseases are stress related. Many diseases, from everything from skin rashes to hypertension to depression and heart disease, are stress related in one way or another, because the body is overworked due to adrenaline overflow, and our lives are such that most of us are constantly experiencing adrenaline rushes um, as a result of the lives that we live. So when a person begins to meditate, they begin to calm all of that down, and as a result, the body then begins to respond positively to the meditative process. And then in addition to that, those gaps between thoughts are opportunities for spirit to come in and do some healing. So meditation is a very healing sort of thing at all levels. And that's what the research studies have shown, is that that's true in many physical, emotional, and mental issues and problems, concerns, and illnesses that people have.
Yeah.
So that was the first book. And then the next book was the meditation book. And it's called The Meditation Book.
Clever title.
And it's an exploration of all aspects of meditation, but it's sort of focused on the practice that I developed called higher consciousness meditation. And you'll appreciate this. It's a very simple meditative practice that begins by saying, peace, be still, sitting and being in a calm, situation,
Right.
Saying to yourself, peace, be still, whether you're sitting cross-legged or whether you're sitting in a chair or whatever you're doing, as an initial entree, and then taking some deep breaths and beginning to get quiet, and then saying to yourself, the all is, and having that be an open-ended expression, and let the all respond, or let spirit respond to your desire to let it inform you about what it is and what it's constituted. And sometimes the answer is the all is omnipresence, and you get a sense of omnipresence,
right?
Or the omniscience of the all, or the all powerful nature of the all. Then pausing and saying, I'm one with that. The next step is to say, higher consciousness is, and here you're speaking to your soul, or you're opening yourself up to your experience of soul contact. Higher consciousness is, and letting higher consciousness or your soul respond back to you and offer itself as some expression. Taking a deep breath, I am one with that. And then the third element is, I am an eternal being. Saying that I'm one with the all, I'm one with higher consciousness, I'm an eternal being. And then just sitting, taking a few deep breaths and experiencing that. And then finishing up with elevate, illuminate, radiate, the experience, or the higher vibrational experience that you have in doing those couple of steps, and then taking a few more deep breaths, and either ending it there or staying in that state for as long as you want to. Because once you get into that meditative state of higher consciousness, it's however much time you want to spend there,
right?
Or however much time your mind will allow.
yeah, that part.
So you can see it's a very simple sort of thing, but it opens up to that heaven within. It opens yourself up to that higher part of yourself, and it opens yourself up to soul contact. And it sort of goes around or bypasses, if you will, mind training. Because as you know from your meditative practice and doing, Vipassana for 10 days. That would be amazing. Um, there's, I mean, your mind wants to be in charge.
Oh yeah.
If you don't, though, focus on training the mind not to be in charge and to be quiet and all of that stuff, but instead you go directly to the experience of higher consciousness. It's been my experience that you don't have to suffer all of that attempts to tame the wild horse,
Right.
but instead just get on the horse and ride it.
Right.
So it's a thing that I came up with, and that's what's discussed in detail, and along with a number of other issues related to meditation and living a mindful life. That's what the meditation book covers. And then I went into the mindfulness book, and then the manifestation book, and I guess the book that I've got coming out, besides the book of poetry that I wrote, which was sort of a ode to Rumi, if you will, or an acknowledgement of Rumi and his work. The next one I have is on health and wellness, and that's the one that I'm working on at the present time.
Right on. When do you foresee releasing that, or do you have a project?
About mid-year.
Okay.
It's beginning to take shape. I've got chapters, they're sort of roughed out. Some of the writings that I do weekly on my blog are becoming some of the chapters that are in that book. So it's not going to be as laborious as it might otherwise be.
Right. Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, we were talking about the benefits of meditation, and,
yes,
just kind of for me, it's given me the ability to slow down into, what I like to call the sacred pause. And then I can respond rather than react. It's definitely lessened my reactivity. In fact, Stephen Batchelor are you familiar with Stephen Batchelor?
No.
He's a Buddhist teacher. He actually translated Nibbana as a lessening of reactivity. So if we can get to that place of lessened reactivity, in fact, Nibbana itself, Nibbana in Pali, Nirvana in Sanskrit, not a word we hear a lot these days unless you're talking about the band. But in ancient India, that was a very common term. In Pali, Nibbana is a cooking term, and it meant to remove like a boiling pot from the fire. So it has this cooling off aspect to it.
Yes.
And in the practice, what we're cooling off to is the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. So,
yes.
Yeah. And if we can get rid of greed, hatred, and delusion, we might have a more peaceful society.
There's some hope.
There's hope, albeit probably not a lot, but I remain hopeful.
Yes. Oh, I do too. And I remain hopeful that on one level, I know that we're all at some point, at some time, going to wake up. I'd like to see us all, or many of us, wake up in this lifetime on at this place instead of some far off, time in the future.
Right. Yeah.
But all of us, I think, are going to return to the all and realize our oneness and merge with that. But for me, sooner the better.
Yeah. Why wait?
That's right.
Why beat around the bush?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't think I was just thinking, there was something I wanted to say to you, and I can't remember for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. I should have written it down. Oh well.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah, eventually. Then we'll do another podcast.
Okay.
We'll have to do another one when your new book comes out.
I'd like to.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Cool. So where can people find you at?
So my website is highcmeditation.com. So it's HICMeditation.com. capital C. So capital HIC meditation.com is my website. I've got a YouTube channel, Blair Abee Higher Consciousness. And I'd like to offer your listeners a free copy of my mindfulness book.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Which I think people would get benefit from and appreciate. And the address for that is mindfulness.highcmeditation.com.
Okay.
Mindfulnessbook.highcmeditation.com. And they can sign up to get a copy of that book,
Awesome.
as well as a little meditation bracelet that I'm offering as well.
Very, very cool. I will definitely put a link to that in the notes for the episode for sure.
I appreciate that.
So you've got your website and your YouTube channel. And what do you do as far as your website? Do you teach meditation? Do you teach mindfulness? Like,
it's really got it's got blog posts, and there are dozens and dozens of blog posts on all kinds of subjects. It's got information about the books. It's got chapters from the books. I don't actually teach meditation on the website, although I thought this year that I might start putting a couple of guided meditations on the website as well, but I haven't gotten around to doing that. I'm thinking about instead maybe doing an app that has that kind of information and experience on it.
That'd be very
so it's a place where you can go and kind of hang out, and get on my mailing list. I'll send out my blog posts, which I do twice a month. There are a number of interesting things to find there. Kind of hang out and kind of see what's up with what I do.
right. So, if you had any advice for somebody who is just starting to, begin their spiritual journey, if you could give them any advice, what would that be?
Meditate.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, meditation is the most direct path to illumination.
I would agree.
And meditate in the morning, meditate in the evening, sit down meditation, and then use mindfulness practices throughout the day, and that will take you way down the path fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. But it does, as you said, you have to do the work.
Yeah.
And you have to remember.
Yeah.
And you have to desire to take that spark, wherever that spark comes from, and do something with it.
Right. I think that's solid advice. Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have this conversation with me, Blair. It's been a really good conversation. I
love this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This has been fun. I sort of lost the notion that we were doing a podcast and we were just having an intimate conversation about spirituality.
I feel like that's the way a podcast should be. I feel like those are the best podcasters, where we're just actually having a one-on-one conversation rather than just, so what do you do? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I threw that.
Yeah, no, we penetrated pretty deeply, I thought, into some good areas.
I tried to throw the Q&A format out a long time ago, man. Like I said, for me, it's about building relationships and community and having these kind of conversations. These,
exactly.
Fairly deep conversations, I guess you would say, for the average Joe. Like I said, I really do appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me, man.
You bet. Loved it.
Thanks. Well, I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll catch you soon.
Namaste.
Thanks again to Blair for being on the show. And if you'd like to get any of his books, they're all available, as I said at the beginning of the episode, on Amazon.com. And again, if you do enjoy the show, please remember to rate and review and subscribe. It would really help me out. As always, I'm Justin. This has been Dharma Junkie. Namaste.